Hello, and welcome to Automat Live Coding. This is the stream where we write a game automation app called Automat. Maybe you can actually play some game today. I was actually thinking that today we are going to fix some of the bugs related to those gears. Yeah, we'll see. So, Automat. In Automat you get access to a bunch of toys that you can connect together and they can control your keyboard and mouse, essentially playing any game you throw at it. Unless the game has some automation protection, some cheating protection. But if the game is of a regular variety, you can send all sorts of signals to the game. In a sec. Like with this toy here, this is a macro recorder. With a macro recorder you can record a macro. The macro can press a sequence of keys, you can move the mouse, and also press mouse buttons. Now, when I play this macro back, you will see that, yeah, those keys are being pressed. Automat is essentially controlling itself. It's moving the mouse. It's even, it could even click on its own play button here. It missed, but it could. It could, if it was slightly more accurate. Anyway, so this is the primary way to use Automat to record macros. But you can also build more complex machines. Machines that will execute instructions. Here we have an object that's a repository of all sorts of instructions that you can use to, I don't know. Let's try this. I don't know what happened, but we just initialized some value here. Anyway, you get access to a bunch of toys like that you can play with. And this is not important. What we are adding right now are those things. This is a new synchronization mechanism. So essentially, when you have a bunch of objects that can do some things, you can tell Automat to synchronize their state. And now, whatever happens to one object is going to also affect all of the others. So this can happen, for example, here, when I switch this object on and off. And there is this belt that connects the objects. And you can see that this belt actually moves in some direction. And this movement is important. It actually shows the direction of the flow of data. So it means that the data is flowing from this switch to this switch. If I start flipping this switch, you can see that it moves the other way. And it may be boring when we do it like that, but when other objects are involved that are doing this for you, for example, a timer, you can, for example, set up a timer for half a second. Now when I switch this off, you will see that this belt is going to move here, but then the timer is flipping everything off. And there are other cool ways of mixing this. Here, for instance, I have a space. This key can react to space, basically. So when I press space, it sends a signal and the timer should switch it off. But there are some problems with belt movement here. You can see it moves the gears, but it doesn't move the belt. So this is actually a bug. When I switch this off, I think now it works fine. Yeah. So this lack of movement of the belt, this is the first thing we will investigate today. And I also was thinking that maybe we could play a game, because recently Cooking Simulator 2 came out, and my wife made this game, so I want to play it, and maybe play it on stream, and maybe even automate it a little bit. Maybe we can see how Automat kind of can deal with Cooking Simulator. Yeah, this bug is pretty interesting. So we have a bigger roadmap. Okay, I can switch this off. We have a bigger roadmap. Our bigger roadmap looks like that. And the task that I just described here, the one with broken belt, is right here. Yeah, shall see. There's lots of bugs. Lots of bugs. Ah. But we have to fix them. There's no other way. This is a coding stream. A warning. There's going to be a lot of programming. Let me close everything off. I have actually been investigating a similar issue with another object recently. Let's see. Let's look for this sync balance. There we go. There is one. We have to log something here. This, and then course. So I've just added two debug lines because I want to see what is actually happening behind the scenes. When I click those buttons and the synchronization happens. Okay, something already happened. Monitoring notified state of something. Interesting. Anyway, check this. Okay, that single interaction should have been a single line. Or actually no, a single line. It should be two lines. Let me slow this down. 60 seconds should be enough. So first, maybe. So I think there is this startup issue where there was some notification on Automat startup. There should be no notification on Automat startup. That was weird. Anyway. Let me switch off monitoring first. This is the case that works. It's moved, I think. This also moved. This looked perfect. This is how it should look. I pressed a timer and timer says, hey, something happened here. I'm sending a notification to the key presser. So it presses the key for 60 or like 59 seconds. The problem is that when this key is monitoring, so the key works in two directions now. This is also nice. This worked flawlessly. But now things will be different. I sent a notification from timer to key presser, and then from key presser, to timer. We go here now. And again, notification from timer to key presser. And from key presser back to timer. And there was also an interesting problem here. Cancel called without a long-running task. Let's look at our key presser. Our key presser has this property called state. So when the timer is switching on, we will call this press function. We'll do send key event, which does nothing. Okay, let's try this. So we sometimes do receive an event from the system and then we send a notification. This looks like this notification being sent back to the timer. I could maybe check if the key is already pressed, and if it is pressed, I could not send the notification through. This is interesting. So it seems that all of these synchronized objects there is a problem. If an object can be synchronized, sometimes when I send a message to it to turn on, it turns on, and in response, it sends back a signal, oh, I just turned on. So there is this reflection coming back from an object, which is bad. Because if I connect more than one object to, to this gear, so the two objects will get synchronized, they will start reflecting forever. Yeah, pretty much. But there is other issue. I think I can actually trigger this. I will add another key presser, for example, for the F key. I will synchronize this with a timer. I know how this works. Okay, I think the first thing I should verify is probably to just log some information. Yeah. Well, this reflection is caused by monitoring. This is one solution. The other solution Okay, and I also think this should be possible to test this. Yeah, I think this is good. So in the case of key presser, it's really not possible to attach this event because we are going through the operating system, kind of. Key presser sends an event to the operating system saying, oh, press this button. And then the operating system sends a signal back and tells us, oh, this button was just pressed. So we cannot really clamp this information that this button press is coming from Automat. Okay, there is one more issue here. Let me fire up Automat again. Okay, there is this startup thingy where key state monitoring I think this is what's happening. I will log some information. Yeah, we want to have a perfect control over what's happening within Automat Engine. There should be no weird events like that, where something suddenly sends sync or unsync. Yeah. Okay, and this is weird, because we seem to be sending this onSync event flip-flop state. Yeah. Well, this should be turned on. It's possible that we are overriding it. Okay. I actually think this is probably fine. I think the problem is that we are sending an event here out. I'm actually thinking about a very hacky solution that would work very well. The solution would be to introduce a flag that would be enabled when we are in this notification block. I think this deserves some explanation. So the problem that I have right now is that none of those strategies work when during initialization, this event that we received here at the very start, it's gone now, it's scrolled out, was caused by the startup code. During startup, we deserialized some key. Anyway, it was connected or something. We called this onsync. What do we call onsync? Anyway, something like that was called. I don't know which path we took. I guess this is what must have happened at the source. Yeah. So during deserialization, there should be no notifications. I need to document this issue very well.
And Hussey says,
Automat live coding. That's what I need between my meeting sessions.
Hey, I feel sorry for you. Meetings were the worst part of working at in a corporation. Unless you enjoy this, unless you somehow derive pleasure from meetings. Some people do. I guess maybe this is the strategy.
Yeah, you're right. But sometimes they're needed to clarify specification requirements, or even MVP. Anyway, Borean.
I remember one of the first things that when those AI agents came out, that happened was that people got those virtual assistants that could join meetings and summarize them, so that they do not have to attend. There was something like that. I remember there were like Zoom meetings where some people came, some people joined, and for other people, there were just those virtual assistants that joined just to summarize what happened on the meeting. I guess it's no longer a thing. It was weird, but it kind of made sense, maybe.
Lo, clever thing to avoid meetings, haha.
Yeah, there is something creepy about this, but it's also a good idea. Yeah, I think I will be able to unify those two together if I switch to this global boolean, which is awful, but so this is a thread local variable. Thread local is something that I absolutely hate. It's an amazing performance trick, but the way this is implemented in ABI, that stuff that the linker does to make this work, this is just some absolute black magic. So the way that thread local works is that the linker sets up some crazy data structure in memory, which combines thread local variables from all objects in some kind of weird linked list. It's just very strange. There are issues about releasing of this memory, and the time, like, sometimes you don't know how much memory you need for thread locals because you load dynamic objects. Dynamic objects can have their own thread locals, or they can reuse thread locals from your application. It's such a messed up thing. But I think we need something like this here.
That thread local is strictly from C. That's why it's with extern keyword.
So thread local is actually even below C. Below C there is something called ABI, which just defines how the machine code in a given operating system should work. Let me find this. So there is this guy, he's Masquerade, he has a blog and he writes about one of the linkers. He made, I think, LLD Gold or one of those linkers he made. And he explains how those things works, and I had so many issues related. He helped me a lot with his blog posts. His documentation is amazing, but the way that thread local works is very... thread local is something that works more at it's more like an assembly level thingy.
Oh, okay, below C. So bridge to see-through SMI, assume.
Yeah, and it's slightly... each operating system defines how thread local variables work, and they have to be plumbed through. On the level of assembly, this works. We have a bunch of registers. One of the segment registers, actually, it's not visible here, is responsible for keeping a pointer to thread local storage. It's very fast. It's very efficient, but it's so messed up in how it's implemented. And I also don't like thread local because Automat is a very low-level environment, right? And I am accessing the assembly registers, and I am scared of touching. I'm absolutely scared of touching thread local stuff. I just have been bitten by this so many times before. Okay, and the second approach is to I will actually fire up Claude and ask Claude if it can find any other, or maybe Gemini? Maybe I will ask Gemini, or not Claude. Gemini doesn't have access to my source code. I will ask it if it can figure out any other approaches.
Meister Chica says,
Stars are written to be understood by anyone until you read C and C, standard regarding use of underscore and double underscore.
Hey. This is actually fairly consistent. I think what double underscore are platform variables, and single underscore is like compiler. I don't remember. There is also the trailing underscore, which is sometimes used for private variables.
And lowercase you can use and capital you can't use.
URL.
Oh. So I like the fact that the important stuff is the last two paragraphs. So each identifier that contains a double underscore or begins with an underscore followed by an uppercase letter, other than those specified in this document, for example, underscore underscore C++, is reserved to the implementation for any use. Implementation being, this is the lawyer speak. So what is the implementation? C++ implementations. Oh, I guess this is the compiler?
It's not even paragraph, it's footnote.
Each identifier that begins with an underscore is reserved to the implementation for use as a name in the global namespace. Okay, so compiler can introduce double underscores and underscore capital letters.
Gonassis says,
Is this rule for ISO C only? Does this apply to Visual C and CLI also?
Yeah, this is the law for all of C++, I think. Although I do not know this web page. This is the C++ standard. I mean, you know, there will be probably compilers that will not follow this if you write your own extension or something. Or if you if you use some crazy C++ compiler.
Meister Chica says,
There is nothing standard about MSVC following standards.
I mean, there are some includes in Windows API that they really had an impact, throughout the history. To this day, they still affect. I think they still prevent C++ modules from just happening. They really love macros. They really love defining APIs as macros.
URL.
And after you read that header file check header C23 standard boot bright,
The thing that I wish C++ standardized was the command line. It would be so crazy if C++ standard actually had unified command line for invoking the compiler. I have not, I've never heard about this.
URL.
C++23 optional. Well, I had no idea that standard can have optional elements.
and then compare it to MSVC CL implementation of same header file.
What? Ah, it's just empty. It must exist, but it might be empty. Or maybe this rival score has something.
They don't even define STD. Float something.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I wonder if my ESP32 has something like that. Brain floating point type with 16 bits exactly. What? What? It's just a very, very rough floating point. Sounds like a cool type. If you're multiplying numbers with some insane scales, yeah. Okay, I think I'm almost done with documenting this. I will ask the AI if the AI can figure out any other approach for me. Actually, maybe I can avoid a global variable. If I attach it to the object itself. I do not like thread local, but thread local actually seems like the correct solution here. The advantage of thread local is that the CPU core can execute at maximum speed. It doesn't need to synchronize its memory cache with other CPU cores. But a boolean also doesn't have to be atomic. It can be a regular boolean within the object. Let me see. If I remember correctly, I had some padding here, yes. This is just begging to be used as a sync inhibitor. Yeah, these 4 bytes of padding after this variable. But this does not cover everything. Two versions of cancel. I think I could have begin long running without this will not be a thread locker thingy. Okay, time to fire up Claude and see if it can figure out this issue. Because it must be common. I think there are those whole reactive systems, like there is the observable. This library, it uses data synchronization at its kind of core level. This is how you do everything here. Anyway. Okay, so observable uses a global sorting, which is not possible really in Automat. Seems like all of those systems, they use two-pass approaches. delta cycles. So this requires me to keep kind of two states for everything. I actually think the correct solution to this problem is even different. It's to allow infinite loops. It's to embrace them, because sometimes computers just enter loops and they execute forever, and it's fine. Maybe this is the way to think about this. Maybe it's to allow infinite loops. I think this checking of state is actually important. And I think I'm already kind of doing something like this. Okay, I think I will add a boolean into an object. First, I need to add this equality check. So this will help with like half of the issues. The other half is the forward notify, or just notify. So what happens is I am deserializing gear, and it calls onSync. And it causes a message to be sent. It causes monitoring to be enabled. Yeah. So and be right back. Okay, we are back. I got air conditioning finally after years of burning during summers. But it's crashing. Like it's very weird. Air conditioning is having some, I don't know, issues. Bizarre thing. Anyway. I was looking for places where deserialized key is called. I think I am actually looking for the resistance CC. Exactly.
Malgoa says,
Only notify if a sync caused a state change. If state is already identical, skip notify. This way, when the originator receives a ping from its source ping, it will not reciprocate. The loop will end.
Yeah, you know the problem. But this situation where I'm just checking, the state, it only works for one objects where I actually can track state. This syncable thing is actually meant to also handle objects where the state cannot really be kind of tracked. For example, like an SVG image. If you think about like an SVG image, it's a complex object with a complex internal structure, and I can call a function on this object. For example, transform by 5 pixels to the right, like move everything to the right. And when I receive this kind of event, in addition to tracking the state, which I definitely have to do, you are correct about this, I also need something else that will allow me to filter those other kinds of events. Sometimes you just cannot, by looking at the state, distinguish if an event is idempotent. Only for very simple things that can be, fully represented as a state, and it only works for some objects, not for all of them, unfortunately. Yeah. But yeah, this is a messed up problem. I really feel that the right solution is actually solution 5. There is also solution number 5, which is maybe correct. I will just do this very carefully throughout the system. I think there are places where it can be stopped, like by tracking the state. There are probably places where it may be stopped by carefully separating the path which sends synchronization and the path which does not send synchronization. And that's it. I think those two solutions together, and accepting when it's not possible, just living with it in all the other cases.
Propagate originator ID in the notification chain so originator can ignore when it comes back.
Yes. This is also a good solution, and this is also what I'm doing in another place. Man, you know this stuff. Yes, so I actually have a case where actually it was the case with those timers. If there was a timer and a switch and they were synchronized, when I flip this on, the timer doesn't start immediately. It actually cues an event to be started eventually. And when it actually starts afterwards, it was sending the event back. So yes, I actually had to plumb through this notification, like originator ID, just like you say. So this is how this case is actually handling the notifications. So that's why I can start a notification from the switch and the bells move in the correct direction, but when it goes to the end, it goes back. But yeah, but I think even if I do everything perfectly, there will always be, for example, objects made by the user, which for some reason messed something up, just broken objects, And the system should still work even if the objects are broken. So I think this fifth solution is making the environment tolerant to infinite reflections. Yeah. Okay, we'll do this. This is actually very simple. I think in forward notify.
Can you establish a tiebreaker rule when they disagree? You must stop the infinite loop.
Oh, it's not only about disagreement, because the objects that we see here, they are kind of stateful in a sense that I know their state. I can track them. This sync mechanism, it should also be useful for synchronizing operations on object on which I do not know the state. This is very frequently the case with anything that's outside of the computer memory. If the computer has to control some, I don't know, engine or send messages to another computer, then I do not know the state. I cannot operate with the assumption that I always know the state of the object. Most of the time, I do know the state of the object, but that's not always the case. But this tiebreaker, I actually don't think the tiebreaker is a good idea. I actually think those oscillations, they could be fun. Maybe there are use cases where they can be exploited to do something. I don't know. I'm also thinking out loud, so I do not have everything figured out. Phew. So now it's this timer, it is shifting this because it's switching itself on and off. It's running most of the time, but then it's kind of switching off and on, and that causes 2 notifications to be sent. I'm trying to synchronize this with music. Anyway. So we have a guarantee that here inhibit is on. Is off. Do this. And this. So I do not need to store anything, I can just restore it like that. So this is one thing, the other thing is...
Memory height 1000, says.
Yo, what you building?
Hey. So this is... if you know AutoHotkey, AutoHotkey is a macro utility. This is a visual macro utility. It's something where you can build sort of scripts out of smaller components. Like, here is a hotkey. I can connect this hotkey to some other objects that, for example, is going to draw a pentagram whenever I press a space now. This disconnect. So now when I press space, my mouse is going to make a pentagram.
Wow, that's cool. Python?
Not quite, but it will probably include Python. Yeah, it's mostly C++, but I think Python will be useful as a scripting utility. So, you know, because sometimes expressing a complex program is just not possible using those toys. Sometimes you need some, like a real programming language, and I think Python is the best. it's so simple, so regular, easy to learn. It's like a perfect...
Very cool.
Yeah. So Python, I think for Python there will be like a new kind of object where you can type Python code, and this Python code is going to maybe, you know, coordinate work of other objects.
What lib you are using for this in CPP?
Plenty of libraries. I think the most important one is the graphics library that I'm using. This is Skia. This one. It doesn't have a very flashy website, but this is like the best 2D graphics library out there. I do not know anything that would beat Skia. This is what Chrome uses to draw itself. So all of the websites, like everything is being drawn with Skia, with this library. Helps a lot. Oh, that's a bug. That's a bug. Anyway, this whole environment is built out of bugs.
Dang, they'll be here some man. I've worked with Rayleigh Baha. Flutter uses Skia pretty sure.
Yeah. Really is also fine if you're targeting, like, Skia takes space, right? Skia is like, if you compile Skia with the most optimizations and minimal dependencies, you're still looking at 8 megabytes of overhead. It's quite a lot. 8 megabytes? It's already beyond some embedded computers. But if you want to write a game that will run on some kind of embedded ARM, tiny ARM computer, then probably Rayleigh is the way to go. I wanted to do something here. I wanted to flip this funny flag. Okay. That was amazing. I was just typing, I pressed space, and my mouse suddenly performed a pentagram. Oh, okay, I need to flip this off. Sometimes it does funny things. I actually wanted to play a game today, but we'll see. If I can figure this out, if I can solve this belt direction issue, then I think the rest of the day I will spend not coding, but actually using Automat to automate a game. Yeah, I also need to flip this back. D.objects, okay, it's a string map. Can I do this? Yeah, yes I can. Okay. That simple fix should have fixed the startup notification, so it should not be no member ob. Wow. State ref. That's true. There is no obj here. Okay.
Meister Chica says,
Can Automat automate this thingy?
URL.
Oh, that would be a nice project. I know this game. Let's think about how do you typically play this? Oh yeah. You send attacks?
Click, 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 click.
Yeah, yeah. Come on. Okay, I need more. I do not know the meta. This is a tricky game. I think the way to play this would actually be to first write some bot to figure out the optimal strategy. Because the strategy also changes depending on how other players play. You know, I do a lot of kind of all-in. So I'm easy to kind of take over. I think it would be very difficult. I think it would be super difficult. Probably not with Automat. Okay, I noticed something problematic. I noticed that upon startup, it seems that Automat started monitoring the space key. I don't think it should. I think the space key should be not monitored at the startup. Yeah. Still something wrong. I wanted to see the default state. Find the presser. Okay, so we are actually not sending, not serializing whether this is actively monitoring or not. I think we should. Find the serialize state.
Malgoa says,
Consider a notification filter instead of turning off all notifications from the node. Also, consider disabling at each edge instead of in the entire node.
This is interesting. Yeah. Objects are very complex things in Automat. Each object can have multiple properties. Each of them can be synchronized. Like a key presser actually has two Boolean properties. There is the state of the key, whether it's pressed or not, and there is the whether it's being monitored or not. I can switch those two Booleans independently. There is this interface. This should not really send any notification out. Okay. Okay, but this code is not actually going to be activated anyway, because my Automat state has no monitoring. What I'm doing right now I'm trying to prevent the key presser from entering the monitoring state on startup. It happens automatically because of gear. Gear calls add sync or add source. One of them. Yeah. Okay, I need to stare at the code for a couple minutes to figure out some things in my head. I'm also still thinking about what you said, Margaur. It's an interesting option. Instead of inhibiting all sync notifications on the object, we could inhibit notifications within each syncable member. Essentially this, within this state, there would be a boolean. That's a nice place to put it. Yeah.
Consider adding modification behaviors, like throttle and debounce. This could allow you to stabilize the coordination instead
Yeah.
of disabling.
Yeah. I think this is a very good path, because in real world, sometimes you want exactly those kind of... sometimes you want to react in those ways. The bouncing especially, I think the bouncing is like a really core primitive in a lot of situations. Anyway. So I know I do not want to call this function on startup if monitoring was false.
Exynos just followed on Twitch.
Hey, thanks for the follow. Maybe within this on-sync, I could stop. Okay, so the problem is that this can be called during the serialization of the object.
There is likely an existing pipeline lib with advanced modifiers you could drop in instead of creating your own pipeline primitives.
That could be a good idea, actually. Let me see. Propagator networks. Oh man, this was very popular on Feeling of Computing forums on the Slack channel very recently. Okay, sodium FRP.
Memheight 1883 says,
This is some big brain stuff.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to make things more complex before they get simpler. So really, this synchronization, it's kind of fake. It's an illusion. This is not how computers actually work. There is no... When this timer event happens, it just gives me a message, right? That I can then do something with this message in the code. So it's not really a state I get, but I'm kind of introducing this state because this is how I think about this problem. And this is essentially introducing a useful illusion. Something that's fake, but that's practical. Yeah, the space should not have active monitoring here. Look at this. Now it works. I think I did fix something. Still some things to address. I wanted to read about those libraries because they could be, even if I do not use them directly, they probably have some patterns about how to handle this problem correctly. Batching. I'm not sure how I feel about batching. I guess it's okay. And transactions. Yeah, I feel reluctance towards introducing those batches and transactions because they are really, they shouldn't be there. What really happens is there is an event, the event should be propagated out. These batching and transactions, they are just tricks to avoid errors. I think there should be a better way to do this, something that's not... Or maybe it's fine, I don't know.
Malgor says,
Check our XCP lib. Reactive extensions, pipeline primitives.
I will. We'll just go in order. I mean, all those libraries, the algorithm is very simple. They prohibit cycles, but they could also allow cycles. It's not really a big issue if for me, it's not a big issue if the program kind of executes forever. If it enters an infinite loop, that's fine. I just do not want to enter infinite loop on the stack. I always want to use a scheduler for this infinite looping. But they look reasonable. Let's check RxCP. Oh, this is a very trippy way to look at the problem. Algorithms for values distributed in time as opposed to values distributed in space. They are fundamentally different. You have infinite time, fixed space. Oh, I see. So it works a lot like ranges. This library is actually solving a slightly different problem. It's about being... It gives a really nice syntax for composing data flow programs in C++. This is slightly different. I really do not care about syntax. The syntax can be awful. It can be Java.
Infinite loops are fine, just not infinite echoes. The problem is worth addressing.
Just want to see some... Okay. I think we're good. I think the issues that I'm fixing right now is they're really not fundamental. They are more like just mistakes, things I missed when implementing this stuff. For example, this on-sync, I need to think about how it should work, because this on-sync has a side effect of turning on monitoring, and sometimes I do not want to do this. Kind of like that. But maybe I should call this at a higher level. Maybe here. No. I think the object needs to receive this message, even if it's being deserialized. Okay, I think this should help. Okay, so space is no longer active. Cool. It works. Now I can enable monitoring. Okay, we sent a notification to the timer. Timer started running. And release it. That works. Okay. Now let's see if the timer stops the releases the space for me. This arrangement of objects, by the way, it's actually useful because it limits the length that I can press the space to 13 seconds now. Timer will release the space for me. Yeah. I'm still holding the space on my keyboard, but it's not being typed. So the operating system thinks the space was released. Ooh. In the direction, yeah. Direction of the belt was also good. It shows that I press space and the timer keeps this off. There was one more thing I wanted to see. This is causing some weird issues. When I press space here, what will happen? It starts the timer. Whoa, what happened here? I need to analyze what happened. So this timer switching itself off. It sends a notification to the key presser that it's off. And then it immediately starts itself again. So it sends a message, oh, now I'm starting again. So it sends 2 messages. And those are fine. Those are perfect. Okay, and the problem is that after I released and pressed the button again, I send those events out, the operating system responds to me back with the same events. Oh no, I messed up my log. The idea is kind of simple. I'm sending 2 events very quickly, one after the other, and then they have to go through the pipeline of the operating system, and when I get them back from the operating system, they look like completely fresh events. I need to somehow distinguish that, hey, those were caused by me. I see maybe Claude can help. This here, so you can see what I'm writing. actually have a solution in mind for this problem, but I just want to see if Claude will suggest the same solution. The solution would be to attach some kind of tag to the event that I'm sending. Maybe it's possible, I don't know. And if it's not possible, then, well, yeah, gonna be hard. Or some, yeah, throttling maybe, yeah. Maybe I can record within the key presser the time where I pressed this button and enter a couple milliseconds inhibitory period. Something, this inhibitory period, when I said it out loud, it immediately reminded me of neural networks, because biological neural networks, they have the same mechanism. Like, when a neuron fires, after it fires, it enters an off state where it's not reactive to anything. I mean, if brains work like that, it seems like nature found a very good kind of strategy. Probably a good idea to emulate it.
Movin Duthanuranin 1026 says,
Sup, dude?
Hey,
Meister Chica says,
I have a solution for your problem. It might not be the best one, but it fixes the problem.
those are the best ones. I mean, if they fix the problem.
I'm me, RFV Automat Guru. 23.
Mema 1883 says,
LOL.
It's, I mean, except RM, except deleting the source code. Actually, sleeping on a problem is not such a bad idea. But the solutions, this problem that happens here, it is solvable. There are ways to solve this. One way is this inhibitory period, where if there is a notification sent, I record the time, and for some time that object cannot send this notification back. Another is to attach a tag to the event that's sent to the OS. If I tag the event and I receive event back with the tag, then I know I shouldn't propagate it. Oh, look at that. There was something like that. Looking like fresh input. I really like that the AI can summarize the problem. Like, for me, I basically needed this amount of space to describe the problem, and the AI did this in a single sentence. This is insane. Wow. Yeah, source tracking is locked at the OS boundary.
Movin Duthanuranin 26 says,
Keep it up, dude.
Meister Chica says,
I think I might build Package Manager in C just for shits and giggles.
What OS you are on right now? Arch. It was Arch, right? What is Pacman written in? It's Python, right?
In C.
Oh. Nice.
We are grown-up men, not script kids like Emerge guys.
Yeah. But you know, Emerge has those build packages, like build scripts that can basically do anything. I guess Pacman also has something like that. Fair point, fair point. Emerge could be rewritten in C. It could probably benefit from this actually.
Unit Pac-Man also has that.
Okay, this expected echo queue is totally... it's a trap. This is not... on paper it works, in practice it's just a trap.
L.
Yeah, I remember. It has to have those features because otherwise it wouldn't be able to build like half of the world. This actuating... I do not want to assume that the echo will arrive. I think this is the way to do it. I mean, it's as crude but effective. I think this is the most... like... this solution is the most robust of all of them. It's always going to work. The operating system can go haywire. It may not send back the events. It may reorder the events. This will just work. I think this is why it also has this biomimicry aspect where it emulates how neurons work with their inhibitory period. Weakest approach. Oh, it's not the weakest. Far from it. I mean, it is sometimes a little bit weak. Even neural networks have those issues where they can enter oscillations. And they basically stop working. Oh, on Wayland there is a virtual keyboard, nice. we're not going to use that. Anyway. There are also crazier solutions, like one solution that feels interesting is to embed an X server into Automat, so that when I start a game, it's not talking with the root X server, it's talking with Automat's X server, and there I can spoof whatever events I want. And it also works deterministically. Long term, this is the way to go, but I think timestamp is the solution here. Okay, let's do this. It's some widget. Yeah, I do not care about this. Okay, 7 bytes of padding. Ouch.
Golang is most Golang projected. Just assume you have Go installed to build Go.
It's impressive. I remember that how they bootstrapped the Go compiler. They actually wrote everything in C first, and then they translated from C to Go. Like automatically, they just used find and replace to transform C to Go. And suddenly they got a self-bootstrapped compiler.
Memheight 1083 says,
Wait, Go builds itself.
Yeah. It's pretty rad. This is like a sign of maturity of the compiler, of the language. Very few languages can do this. Because they need to go through this bootstrapping, which is just a lot of work. They need to have two compilers. One compiler written in some native language and another compiler in their own language. But Kotlin is cheating.
Meister Chica says,
Java, Kotlin, and that's about it.
Kotlin is kind of like C++ because it piggybacks, like C++ piggybacks on C, right? The compiler was initially written in C. And Kotlin piggybacks on Java because it can just... it treats Java sources as its own sources. Almost. It can interoperate with them. Anyway.
Python is just a C binary blob at this point.
I think there was this PyPy. I haven't looked into the not PyPy. There was another PyPy maybe. If I remember correctly, PyPy is actually written in Python. So this is a Python interpreter, Python compiler. Is it written in Python?
Memlite 1883 says,
That's interesting. Pie.
Meister Chica says,
Hear me out?
Okay, that should address this issue. I need to document this trick because this is crazy. Okay, space is not being monitored, so let's start monitoring.
We rewrite Java so it's semi-sane. Write fatter compiler for it. Compiler also now embeds JVM into jar. And jar also contains bootstrapping expanded code so that user don't have to install Java beforehand. And now, Java runs on 30 billion devices. I think Oracle should hire me.
Yeah, the fact that you have to have separate Java is a pain. But you know, the benefits are actually... The benefits of Java come from its platform, like multi-platform abilities. I mean, it's not really super multi-platform, but theoretically it is, right? Theoretically, you can take jar from, you know, a Nokia phone from 20 years ago, and it should still run on the most recent Android. At least, you know, the Java library.
Memahite 1883 says,
CP Chica is onto something.
Meister Chica says,
You're onto nothing and just using rational thinking. While everything was Java code, we didn't have to deal with ILOPware.
Seme7th says,
Do you have plans for building components in Automat for user to create custom components?
Yeah, and actually the components built within Automat are going to be much better than the ones that I am building in C++. Because the way to script Automat is to use machine code. You literally have access to, you know, pieces of machine code. So if you, for example, write a handler or some, you know, tiny function that does just it does a little bit of work, if you implement it within Automat using, you know, assembly, it's going to be faster than if you wrote it in C++. So actually, yes, and the extensions written in Automat are going to be better than the native ones.
Meister Chica says,
Wait a minute. Two and two don't add up much, eh? So theoretically, accidentally created noob-friendly Godbolt.
Yeah. We just need some better tools for, you know, for example, performance monitoring, and those cards, they really need to be improved. I mean, I think this is probably like the easiest interface for assembly. I mean, compare this to, you know, having a book and a text editor and a command line with assembler is probably much more approachable. But still, there is so much to improve in how instructions are visualized and how if you have large blocks like multiple instructions, manipulating large groups of instructions is still a pain. But once this is done, yeah, absolutely.
You just need to embed Clang into it.
I mean, it already has LLVM, right? There is LLVM it's actually taking a lot of space. Okay, I think the issue is fixed. I don't know why it's so laggy. It was laggy before. Okay. I think I will mention the inhibitory period in the sync documentation. Would this formulate this?
Semi-7th says,
Are you running a local self-hosted LMM?
Not quite. This is... I did try. I mean, we're following the local LLM space very closely, but the quality is not quite there. Claude is still like just better. It has this uncanny ability to just follow instructions and not do its own thing.
Meister Chica says,
Which Hello World program is small in binary size?
you are a...
I actually don't know how it looks today, but in the past, using cout was a terrible idea because cout in the standard, it has to synchronize with the C and flyer. Just printf was faster. Puts is definitely fast, but this is some std puts. I'm not sure if this is the cpads. I'm not sure about this one. hard for me to even reason about this because they are all using some C++ wrappers. I guess those could be fairly small. I would actually bet for puts. Yeah, I would say puts. But those could be very similar to puts. And cout, unless the compiler can really optimize this, maybe modern compilers can do this. Cout is definitely not the smallest. It could also be...
Mahite 1883 says.
I say main 3 drive.
Meister Chica says.
2, 9ac 1, 20 3, 512, 450 one cacho.
Yeah. So puts is the smallest. I was actually hesitant because puts, I guess it's still doing buffering, the output buffering. So it's not invoking the syscall directly, it's probably writing to some C buffer. And only when the new line is encountered, this is when it's flashed. I don't know how compilers do this. But I bet that in terms of speed, actually one of those two is actually the fastest. There's probably not much difference. This is a fascinating problem, this synchronization. I mean, it works now. Like, all of the cases are solved. But, well, it was an adventure.
Semo7 says,
Have you built an reactive engine for Automat? Or considered that?
It kind of has one already, but I wouldn't call it an engine because it's not really. I mean, maybe you could build large applications out of this. So the core kind of mechanism in Automat is simple control flow passing. So you have an object that executes, and it executes the next object after that. Let's run a timer and then start recording a macro. Yeah, there is a macro. So after this timeline finishes, we can do, I don't know, something else. Capture a window. Space. We play the macro. We capture the window. This is actually a pretty interesting setup. So now when I press space, it doesn't send the event immediately. I need to press the space for like half a second before it sends an event. You can release it. Just half a second. So yeah, so the core system for orchestrating is just control flow in Automat. You just have cables that go down. But the synchronization, I added this because it's just, there are some places where it's just super useful to have something that can be flipped on and off. It's a very convenient, I don't know, abstraction. This synchronization is actually one of two reactive mechanisms in Automat, and there is one more. This one more is not really exposed, but it's in the source code. There is a header called treemath. And it's just a library for doing math using those. I don't even know how to call this. doing math using graphs, where you define a graph where things kind of equal. It's a very fun formalism. It's like a tiny library that allows you to compute quite complex formulas from any direction. So if this one changes, it can propagate to others. If this 5 changes, yeah. It was actually used in some tests in Automat some time ago. It's not exposed right now, but I will bring this back. I will definitely bring this back. It's a very cool, very powerful primitive to have. Okay. I guess that's it for today. I would like to plan the next steps. This is done. Okay, the other errors are small. It's that I need to drag this belt here, and it jumps here. If I drop it here, it doesn't sync properly. It needs to be dropped here. Stop pressing space. So I guess the next stream I will do something that's actually a fun side effect. So when I drag objects, there is this belt and pinion that drags behind the object. This is a bug actually. It should not be there. It should only appear when I actually start syncing stuff. But, well, here we are. Yeah, so next stream we will do the hiding and we will do the this tiny bug and fix as many crashes as we can.
Meister Chica says, URL.
That's on my machine.
Those are sizes.
Yup.
I guess we only care about release, right? Yeah, 1, 2, and 4 identical. When you trigger optimizations, but this is actually very large. It's like 14 kilobytes. You said that was that this Hello World 2 was 1.2 kilobytes. It's like 10 times larger. Is this OS or O3? This is also a question. Maybe it's actually good that it's large. Maybe large means that it's well optimized.
O3. S.
O3 minus S.
Auto.
What is minus S?
You would usually see it as WL. Strip.
Ah, okay. Stripping. Makes sense. I think even Automat uses this. Yeah, it must be stripping. Oh, this is actually making a noise. I will increase the volume.
So CP Comedy copied code from FMT lib and made it worse. Checks out
You want to submit this thingy. So everything looks correct here. Okay, flip-flop. I'm still doing something in flip-flop. Things work great. Yeah, looks good. Let's go. Okay then, that's it for today. There will be no stream on Friday. I need to delete this from Twitch. So, see you next week, Monday. Bye bye.